I'm not getting his mic.
Have just discovered what the term actually means in the last couple months. Some of us have known what the term means for years. But now there is no doubt that NFTs are here to stay and that many people are curious about them, want to learn about them, and also want to build in this industry. We've got a very exciting 3 days of content, fun and games, and excellent speakers and panelists lined up for you. You can watch them all right here on our stream, and you can get all the info at firstmintfest.com, as well as join our Festival HQ Discord, which is going to be something that nobody's really done before. Have a party in a Discord just for a couple days. There's a lot of ways for you to experience this festival, but the most important part for you is to keep an open mind, discover some fun projects and communities, and have some fun, because that's what NFTs really are. They're having fun together with other people. We're going to kick off the festival with a very special interview. Been waiting to speak to our next guest for a long time, and when we started planning the festival, there was no other person that we could kick it off with. Welcome our guest, Roham Gharegozlou. Hello, sir.
How you doing?
I'm
Thanks
good.
for having me.
Well, thanks for coming. You are legit the first person I've ever met in crypto and NFTs. I know I just tweeted that minutes ago, but it's true. Like, I've been doing this for about a year, and I have yet to meet anybody, friends, enemies. No, I'm just kidding. But I've yet to meet anybody in real life, so it's great to actually see you.
Yeah, this is the first in-person event I'm doing in a while as well. So it's good to be here. Would rather be nowhere else.
Awesome. Well, we're gonna have a good chat today. We got a lot of stuff to cover, so let's get right into it. Every time we have a guest on the First Mint, we obviously ask them to introduce themselves. And in your case, most people definitely know who you are, but let's take it as though I'm somebody who has no idea what crypto is, NFTs, or anything. If you're meeting me like at a party or something like that, what do you do? How do you explain that to somebody?
Oh, well, I mean, especially at a party. Look, like a big part of our thesis at Dapper Labs is that you don't need to talk about the technology. You need to give people a way to play around with it. And so if it's at a party, I ask them if they're an NBA fan. If they are, I tell them about Top Shot. And if they're not, I ask them if they've ever, collected sports cards before. If not, I ask them, what they do with their free time on social media, et cetera. And so I find some way that is relevant to them to start explaining, hey, what are NFTs, and from a perspective of give them something to go for, give them a community to go engage with, give them something to go look into and do, rather than kind of just blast them with information.
Okay, so when someone's like, "Hey, what do you do, man?" You're just like,
I tell
"Hey."
them about Top Shot.
You tell them about Top Shot. Okay, so okay, yeah, so you go right into it.
Yeah, I mean, look, like sports is something that brings billions of people together, and Top Shot's about remaking that kind of fan experience. And so, yeah, that's the first thing I start with. I mean, nowadays, if I can tell someone might be into crypto, I might also mention, that we're working on flow and other things. But absolutely, I mean, Top Shot is, especially going into next year, it's the thing that I think at a party, almost everyone there needs to know about it, and is going to be their first entryway into playing around with something that's crypto enabled. That's not necessarily cryptocurrency or things like that.
Absolutely, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What's the part when you explain it to people? Where does it actually click for them? Like, is it that this new experience of fandom? Let's say we're talking about Top Shot. Is it a new experience of fandom that you're kind of explaining to them, or do you still get a bit of resistance? People are like, I don't really get how this stuff works.
Yeah, I mean, totally. I mean, especially when you're talking about how it works, there's still a lot of, we haven't figured out the right words, all these things. But like to me, Top Shot is two things. One is kind of taking the same elements that you have in trading cards and CryptoPunks, like hyper scarcity and a community that appreciates that and wants to store value in those assets. And to certain people, that makes a ton of sense. And especially trading card collectors, et cetera, memorabilia collectors. And NFTs are just better than the existing alternatives because they're more transparent, more liquid, instantly tradable under your own control, et cetera. Sort of Bitcoin to gold. And I think that appeals to a small group of people, but a group of people that sort of financially drives maybe higher dollar volumes, as we're seeing, on CryptoPunks, et cetera. And one that honestly, the Top Shot product today and the marketing, et cetera, isn't fully aimed at. I mean, it's we obviously have those people in our community, but we could be doing a better job in terms of building features that serve them. And then the other aspect of Top Shot is not at all to do with speculation on dollar values. Is more engaging with your favorite players, engaging with your favorite teams, getting access to events and experiences that are even the NBA wouldn't have the kind of capacity and resources and data and sort of digital
like the
product.
like the setup to do it, essentially.
setup to
They
do
don't
it,
have the
exactly.
data and the people, like that social construct, let's call it, right?
Exactly. Well, and NFTs are sort of that. They're almost they're collectible, but they're also a proof of fandom. They're a proof of ownership. They're a ticket into different. They give you access into different experiences, and that to a basketball fan is like, wait a second, you're telling me that I can collect highlights from my favorite players and then maybe get a chance to meet those players? That makes perfect sense to them, even if they're not a quote unquote collector, or that they don't have $100,000 of trading cards in their basement, because it brings them in a very direct way closer to their sport. So I think Top Shot is both of those things. We kind of mix them together a lot, and I found as I talk to people about it, a smaller group of people cares a lot about that first one. A larger group of people gets very excited about that second one, and it's about figuring out sort of who's who and making sure, whether it's making sure the product also kind of makes it easy for them to find their way. You might have seen today we announced the fandom tier, and so you have common and fandom tier moments that are about that fandom and engagement, whereas you have rares and legendaries that are rarer and more legendary than any CryptoPunk or Panini card,
Whatever's out there. Yeah. Okay. So meeting you at a party, you become a convert, essentially. That's
the idea. I mean, that's why I don't get invited to parties anymore.
Yeah, that's good. Let's rewind. We're obviously going to talk about Top Shot quite a lot. We're going to save some of that stuff for the end. Before crypto, before NFTs, from, let's say, starting from Roham turns 18, the world is his. What were those years like? What did you want to do initially, right? Because I'm assuming that was even before Bitcoin or anything. I don't know how. I'm not judging your age, but I'm just saying. I'm assuming that
I'm 35, so I've been around for a little bit.
Yeah.
But when I graduated college was when the white paper, the Bitcoin white paper was published around the same time. As also around the time, Facebook was expanding beyond sort of, Harvard, Stanford, and the universities. But in a lot of ways, I've been in technology my whole life, but it's the bits and pieces that sort of led to crypto have been in the works for a while. Yeah, I made my first website when I was 13.
What was it about? What was it?
Back then, it was around. I basically wrote things about subjects I knew about. So I had a dog, and I had researched raising a dog. So I had infodogs.com or something like that.
Oh, wow.
I had infoparis.com because my family lived in Paris at the time.
What did you write? What was on the HTML?
Just HTML, CSS. Well, not CSS at the time. It was just HTML, frames and all this stuff. And I would put affiliate links to different,
wow,
Amazon.
At 13.
And all these things, but I couldn't get the money out because we were based in Dubai, then we were based in Paris, and so even back then, I was like, wait a second, this kind of sucks. Why do I have to sign up for 15 accounts and then I can't even get the money that I
can't get your InfoDogs money?
Exactly.
Back to clicking the affiliate InfoDog links.
But before crypto, most of what we did that was sort of known was very kind of enterprise software developer tools. Routify is a developer API product. ZenHub is a developer platform. And those kind of built a stability net, basically, where we started to experiment with higher risk things and eventually got to CryptoKitties. We play around with bird catching games and all kinds of AR, VR stuff before kind of
bird catching games.
Well, it was kind of a similar to Pokemon Go, but it was around catching birds that were actually the same designer as CryptoKitties. Gile made those birds, and they were essentially catching rare and strange birds in the wild in AR. And back then, it was 2015, 2016, so we still hadn't crystallized, NFTs and that sort of thing. But the ideas were all there.
Wow. Was there any other, and we're obviously going to get deep into NFTs and everything in flow, so don't worry, we will talk about that. But I do have to ask some more personal questions. If you didn't end up going that stream, like if you weren't making info dogs and birdcatcher and all that kind of stuff, like if you had a totally different career path, what would it have been? Was there anything else? Like, was there Roham the doctor or anything else like that ever a
Yeah.
consideration?
So I studied biology in college. I did biology and economics.
Okay.
And that was the whole idea, sort of biotech and this sort of thing. But and because I felt like, hey, tech is interesting, but I want to get a little bit, I want to dig a layer deeper. But honestly, things just move too slowly outside of technology. You know, the digital products are the only place where you can think of an idea, see it in production in a week, rethink it entirely, and then launch it to millions of people a couple months after that. It's I mean, you just don't, you know, and for good reason, right? Like people's health, et cetera. And so I very quickly went back to digital products.
Okay. So no, would you ever go back to that? I
I
mean,
think
you're
it's
pretty committed to what you're doing now.
very committed, but you know, still try to. I have a lot of friends in that world, and you know, it's obviously. I try to stay involved more as a either just fanboy or investor, et cetera, and sort of what interesting people are working on.
Okay. Flash forward, CryptoKitties. You guys launched it. From that point to where, what did it break Ethereum? Is that what it did? I wasn't around back then, so I don't. I just heard the whispers that it brought down the whole network. Is that true?
It did. I mean, until CryptoKitties, the network hadn't been at capacity, and
Right.
you know, when CryptoKitties launched, at maximum we were sort of 25-30% of Ethereum's gas fees that we're just going to pay
For just the transactions.
for the transaction
Yeah.
fees of the cats, and you know, similar to what people do today in terms of trying to get ahead of the line in the who gets the drop on Ethereum. People were trying to snipe each other on, you know, breeding cats and this sort of thing. And the network couldn't handle it. I mean, today it actually handles it masterfully well. It scales really expensive, but it works, and that's huge credit to what the teams worked on. But yeah, it was very challenging. But the bigger issue to us was the user experience, where you know, we figured, okay, the scalability is an engineering problem that can be resolved, and you have layer 2 solutions, et cetera. But just the difficulty of getting a user to say, oh, go sign up for this wallet, give us your email address, then go download this browser extension, sign up for a wallet, take these things called seed words. That funnel was just absolutely ridiculous.
It still is. That's still very simple. That's still pretty much what it is as well.
Well,
it is complicated, yeah.
Because the protocol doesn't allow anything else. You can either do it fully decentralized or do it fully centralized. There's no facility for sort of having a single interface into both kinds of, on Ethereum. We built it into Flow, right, as one of the many things we built into Flow. But it was kind of a realization that, wow, people want this. You know, we have millions of users coming to our website. The engagement is through the roof. Average spend per user is through the roof. Brands are coming to us. You know, they understand how this technology can help them engage with their fans in a new way. But the technology can't handle it, and the sort of the fundamentals of it are kind of headwinds rather than tailwinds. So it was a very kind of hectic few months, but you know, we made it through it, and I think made some of the right calls.
Is that what you expected though? Like, did you expect CryptoKitties to do that? Like that's what I'm curious about. It's like, and thanks for kind of walking us through that kind of like that, you know, the mindset behind building Flow. We'll get to that in a minute, but I just want to know from like the personal standpoint, like when you have something that you put out there, and like you were saying, it's like tech is the only place where you can build something and scale it to millions in a couple months. Is that what you expected? Because you guys, I guess you had tried other stuff with kind of like the bird catching game and stuff. Like, did you know it would catch on like that? And what was that like?
No, I mean, look, we do things in a very iterative way. So CryptoKitties was a team of 2 for a couple of months. Then it was a team of 3 for an additional month, build the smart contract. Then it was a team of 5, and what that team of 5 did was take a very raw smart contract with a very just simplistic front end, take it to ETH Waterloo, and which was the first, I think, ETH Global event, October 25th, 2017. And they ran the alpha, basically smart contract only. And the way they got people to realize, oh, what is an NFT? What is a, people didn't know what NFTs were. We hadn't even, what is a CryptoKitty? We took Pokemon cards and basically put stickers of cats on them and said, well, hey, these are different rarity
You
cards.
did that at the event.
Well, not me, but the team did.
The team did, yeah.
And credit to, I mean, it was Arthur, Benny, Fabiano wrote the smart contracts. Obviously, Dieter and Mac were behind the game design. But that was when we knew it was fire, because at the event, it just went completely viral. We were playing it at the same time, breeding these cats, and the realizing that, wait a second, I just spent $100 breeding cats and I loved it. And it sort of, it kind of clicked for us that, wait a second, it goes way beyond a new, because we were looking at new gameplay modes a lot, and new sort of human computer interfaces, like input devices, all this stuff. But when we realized the power of true ownership, we realized that it'll go way beyond gaming, and it'll also sort of, it'll cause, it just changes the way people emotionally react to the asset, the IP, and that was the, so when they came back from ETH Waterloo, we took that team of 4, made it a team of 12 or 13. So we cut 3-4x, then took people from other projects.
How did you, sorry, where did you get the funding for that?
So in 2012, I started a company with my brother called Axiom Zen.
So it was already in Axiom Zen.
This was all in Axiom Zen. It was self-funded.
Makes sense.
We built products like Zen Hub and Routific that were, revenue producing. And then we had partners like CAA, who's an investor in Dapper Labs. We worked with several Fortune 500 companies, and our whole work with them was helping them understand how to use emerging technology. So mostly AR, VR, a little bit of sort of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and then eventually crypto. And so we used the funding from those projects to essentially build teams. We were about 80, 90 people by the time we created CryptoKitties. And so we could flex up and down really quick. So CK went to 22, 24 people. And by the time Dapper Labs was formed, it was 50 people. And so we moved really quickly.
Yeah, okay.
And by the way, that core is the reason why we could do, Dapper Labs is not a normal startup, right? We did, and in some ways, I still can't believe people let us do this, but we built a blockchain, a payment solution, and Top Shot as a kind of game that's never existed before, all at the same time. And the reason why I think we could pull through that is this team's been working together for a long time. Dieter joined the company 2013. He was 6 months into Axiom Zen. He was leading most of our most significant projects. Eric Lin, who leads engineering, he joined us soon afterwards. Arthur, super early. Benny, super early. Kim, who leads Dapper products, she joined us super early. So all this kind of core has been working together for better part of a decade now, and it's kind of one of the reasons we pulled through
the dynasty.
He's
the dynasty at this point.
It's we talked a lot about Axiom Zen Mafia, Dapper Labs Mafia, and so but we there's a lot of things we still got to do. So but yeah, it's been a big part of why it's been successful.
Very cool. I like that. I didn't know that you'd had the same core team together. I feel that's so rare these days. Like even like 5-6 years is like people move around a lot these days.
Yeah, I mean, Katie, who led the NBA partnership, she was doing sports. So we started doing sports stuff a couple of years before Dapper Labs even. So it's kind of, the through line continues. She was part-time with us leading those sort of partnership initiatives. With Dapper Labs, we said, well, sports is going to be such a huge area of focus. Why don't you come on full time? So yeah, the whole team's kind of been working at it for a while.
Why Flow?
I mean, to be honest, it took years, right, before we said. I mean, it was called Bamboo first, and it was called Zeus first, then Bamboo, then Flow. But for the first 6 months, it was basically, what do we do? And we're talking to everybody.
Which first 6 months? What do you mean? Like after
CryptoKitties?
After CryptoKitties.
I mean, the day after CryptoKitties, it was clear. Wait a second, this thing's not going to work.
Yeah.
Whereas until then, on test night, I'd been fine.
Right.
And the game broke, right? The game was designed for breeding costing fractions of a cent or a cent or two, a few cents. Today, breeding costs it can cost up to, you know, 50, $60. And so that the game design just completely broke very quickly. And so we were immediately looking for solutions. And 6 to 8 months of just talking to everybody before saying, well, shit, we should start, you know, researching our own just to, you know, bozo check up, like, hey, has everyone thought of everything really? And you know, we felt like they hadn't, and so we started that effort, and it took a year of R&D before we said, yes, this is differentiated enough so that it's a thing. Bamboo or was the name at that time. And then it took us another year to build the first version. So it was 2.5 years of not having a thing to build on, right? And for that first year and a half, we spent $30 million trying to build on Ethereum. Built the first smart contract wallet on Ethereum, built 2-3 products that we didn't, sort of game designs that we never brought to life, but eventually brought Cheese Wizards as our sort of second game on Ethereum. And
Cheese Wizards.
Yeah.
What's Cheese Wizards?
Cheese
I've
Wizards-
seen Arthur talk about it here and there, but I've never actually looked into what it was. Again, before my time.
Cheese Wizards is my favorite. So Cheese Wizards is a battle game, or was we ran one giant tournament essentially, and basically the way it worked is people came to buy wizards. Wizards came with a certain level of sort of energy or cheese in them, and then they battled, and then whoever won the battle, it's sort of a, you know, rock paper scissors kind of mechanic.
Yeah.
And whoever won the battle would take the cheese, and basically that tournament would go on until one person won the whole cheese, which at the time was 600 ether.
Which was not that much
at the time, was not as much as it is now.
Like, that is a life-changing amount of money. 600 ETH.
Yes, it was six figures, but it wasn't
It wasn't
called $1 million. So, but it might be now if folks held on to it. So that was so Cheese Wizards were very cool, but Cheese Wizards came within. So we designed Cheese Wizards to try and be very crypto native, very few users, high dollars. You know, try and kind of say, well, let's kind of build something that the networks of today, back then, kind of could handle. We ended up coming within 42 bytes of the EVM, the Ethereum virtual machine bytecode limit. As in, we kind of stretched for a rock paper scissors game. The thing ended up being so complex, it's so difficult to pull off, and that was another thing that convinced us. Wow, there's so many. There's not just the scalability problem, but sort of there's the wallet, you know. Wallet app interface, sort of that custodial, non-custodial problem. And then there's also the programming language and virtual machine problem, where building complex things with Solidity and the EVM isn't going to work. It's just not going to scale. And so that was a big, you know, Flow is very different in several different ways. And if it was only one of those ways, I think we wouldn't have made our own effort. We probably forked something else and tweaked it. But we ended up rethinking very major architectural pieces of how you put a blockchain together. Not necessarily innovating on, you know, we used research that others had done up to that point, like, you know, our consensus algorithms, hot stuff, which is developed by VMware Labs. But we put it together in a very novel, different way, and nobody was doing. Nobody was taking us seriously when we talked to them about these ideas, because you're like, "Hey, aren't you guys the cat team? Leave the protocol development to sort of serious people."
Of course, yeah. You're the gaming people. So what are you doing building the infrastructure?
But you know, Dieter is a genius, and you know, all our folks. You know, we took the CTO of ZenHub as one of the lead developers on Flow. Alex Henscher, who's the lead one of the architects of Flow, is a machine learning researcher we brought over from Siemens in Germany. So like the team is hyper senior, but the perception was, hey, you guys are cat game guys.
Yeah.
And your ideas are too different, too new. You know, why are you the ones to think about them? So we don't have to get too much into the technicalities.
That's all right. What's the perception now?
I think it's very different. I mean, very quickly, right? A lot of our ideas were validated. The programming language Cadence is a first resource-oriented programming language. Turns out Facebook, the only other team that's built both consumer products and a blockchain, has decided, wait a second, we need to invent a whole new kind of programming paradigm for smart contracts, because it's otherwise too insecure, too hard to write, too hard to audit, all these things. And wait a second, the paradigms end up being exactly the same. So like validation points like this happen very quickly. You know, basically Cadence and Move are somewhat in the same, made some decisions differently. And we approached it from usability, they approached it from performance, but they kind of meet in the middle and validate a lot of our thinking. In terms of architecture, all this stuff, kind of proof is in the pudding, right? Like Top Shot is Flow itself is about 1.8 million wallets now. Top Shot is a good portion of that, and the transaction volume is super smooth, no fees. It's been really awesome, fantastic. And when problems do happen, we fix it, which is not how
that has been nice. Yeah, especially the last couple of months has been very nice. Before we get on to Top Shot, there's a lot to talk about there. From the Flow side, I feel like a lot of people who are new to NFTs now still haven't had the chance to interact too much with Flow because whether they're in Top Shot, but they don't, it's not this front end blockchain, let's call it, right? It's just the back end. So what's the plan for Flow? Like, when are we like, obviously at the fest, there's some great Flow applications that are being, displayed that people can check out, but what can we expect for Flow in terms of its timeline? And please don't get too technical. Just keep it pretty high level for us. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like what in a couple years, what is Flow doing in our lives?
Well, I mean, look, like I would consider where we're at today is very much proof of concept stage across the board, right? Whether it's in Top Shot with our Summer League, PlayerCon, all of these things, or whether it's in Flow where you have some fantastic, basically everyone that's launched on Flow it's been successful. MotoGP sold out, Ben Morrow, $2 million in half an hour. But you're right, they're all kind of independent companies doing independent things. But now there's hundreds of them. There's 400 companies building sort of in the pipeline. Almost 100 of them now have raised venture capital money, a bunch of Fortune 500s that haven't been announced yet. Shopify was recently announced. But so we're kind of focused on seeding the ecosystem and saying it's not a there's no point having sort of a master app store or a kind of Facebook-like distribution layer that ties all of this stuff together until there's enough stuff to tie together. And when a new user comes in, they're looking for the thing that they're a fan of. And I'm not talking about like the crypto community, myself included, loves jumping from project to project. I have a CryptoPunk, I have a Bored Ape, I like playing around with all of these new experiences. I have multiple wallets from multiple blockchains. But to a NBA fan, they want Top Shot because either they're a big collector and they have lots of trading cards, and this is better because it's faster and smoother and more transparent, all these things, or because they want to get closer to their favorite team or whatnot. Only a minority of them, like maybe 0.1 to 5% maximum, will say, "Oh, cool, I'm going to go try a different sort of non-sports NFT." And I think you're seeing it in the numbers, right? Even CryptoPunks is single digits, sort of thousands of people. Most of these profile picture projects, which is great. So basically, the way we look at it is to say Top Shot should be focused on the mainstream. We want other projects on Flow focus on the mainstream. Once there's enough of them, then naturally you'll start seeing sites that sort of link them together. And there's now Flowverse, there's to an extent CryptoSlam and others, but they've also gone cross blockchain. But the value where we see Flow and the place you mentioned, where is Flow going to be in people's lives? Flow is the only blockchain and community focused exclusively on mainstream consumer use cases. We're saying, hey, we don't need hyper complicated DeFi. We don't want things that are way too speculative and potentially damaging to a normal consumer's perception of, hey, what is this community? Is it pump and dumps, or is it what you promised me, which is a road to a better, more open future, closer to things I care about, more time to spend with family, whatever. And I think it's very much the latter, and that's what Flow stands for. But in the I think the experiences are starting to compound quickly. So I think in a year, not even 2 years, you'll see first a lot of new products we're building, but also things that are across the board, not just in sports, but sort of micro fandom communities, platforms where independent artists can come, whether music artists or visual artists can come, build sort of package up NFT experiences that are actually accessible to their fans. Like when Justin Bieber's Genie will do something, his fans from his Instagram will be able to come and interact with it, rather
Right.
than today when you have a major artist, do an NFT drop on other networks. It's usually around tapping into the crypto community,
Mhm.
not around tapping into their own fan base.
bringing them to
Exactly.
crypto. Yeah.
I mean, even this is what we're trying to get better at with Top Shot too, right? Like Quavo posting it. What is that funnel of his audience that are totally non-crypto coming into our product and then experiencing it without necessarily without encountering sort of friction points that are untoward. And so that's what flow is going to be all about. And you'll have people coming into these individual experiences and then being able to go in between them as Dapper becomes compatible with third-party experiences, as third-party wallets become compatible with Dapper, and NFTs can transfer freely in and out. You can connect your Block2 wallet into your Dapper wallet, connect your Dapper wallet into your Block2 marketplace, and sort of have that full open interoperability that people love about Ethereum,
Right.
but without browser extensions and seed phrases and sort of like blockers or even and blockers in the middle that kind of just scare people off and tell them, hey, this isn't ready for you. So it'll take time, but I think that's the path forward.
It's so important for it to just work.
Yeah.
Right. And I think, I don't know if it's Steve Jobs or somebody who said something like that it's just like the product just has to work for people to really fall in love with it. And that's kind of what you're describing, right? Is that Ethereum is complicated. A lot of people discovered it. It's done some wonderful things. And it's hard to understand. It's so hard to get used to. And you can be very much on your own as well, right? Like you send stuff to the wrong address, like, that's going to be tough, but you guys are talking about something that's going to be ready for the masses.
Yeah, and I think it depends on like who's your audience, right? Like Ethereum is very powerful. And like I said, hyper impressive that it's the same network. They have ETH2 hasn't come into it, but that same network can now handle way more volume than it was processing crypto, albeit at much higher cost. But that's the sort of supply and demand, right? That makes sense. Ethereum fees are a sort of a factor of how much people want to use it and value it. So I'm not saying anything negative about Ethereum in that sense. I'm saying that audience is different than our audience, where we say, hey, we value usability. The same application needs to be able to allow both non-custodial and custodial wallets. And actually, the same user needs to be able to take their custodial account and say, no, I actually want custody of that. Be able to take my stuff back. That's just, it's not, look, like you can't do that on Top Shot today, but at least it's technically possible on Flow. And that's sort of the road that we're headed. It's not technically possible on Ethereum. So you have to start one way or the other.
When you sit down and you're talking to like the NBA initially, or any of these brands, IPs that have these huge communities, these huge consumer bases, and you're talking to them about what Flow is and what NFTs are, what is that conversation like? What's the first conversation like with that?
Well, first conversation had a lot of cats in it because that was sort of the introduction to, or at least that's how they also sort of discovered us. But it's the same thing. I mean, look, the funny thing is that the most sophisticated brand people actually get NFTs at a very visceral level. It's almost like that's how they would have wanted digital to work all along. Right. And in a lot of ways, so if also for a developer, and eventually I think for consumers as well, consumers just get very kind of, I think most consumers that use Spotify probably don't even remember how it was to download an MP3, right? Or rip music from a CD. Whereas that used to be what I was, I thought, I was a kid, but at the time,
you were excited about it when you did it. Absolutely. You thought it was cool.
But that behavior was very normal at that time.
Yeah.
And even non-technical people, make mixtapes for each other, right? Like that was a thing.
So now for brand people, they get it.
Right. So so brand people really get it because for them, it's unnatural that they have to go to Facebook to say, hey, can I sell something with my brand on your platform to my fans who follow my page? You know what I mean? Like it's sort of
true.
It's kind of a weird concept where I thought you said this was my Facebook page and they're my followers. So why do I have to pay you to reach them with a message that I'm posting? You know what I mean? Like, and how come you're stopping my fans from seeing my content when they subscribe to my content? And that it's sort of a obviously that's been a kind of battle for some time. So when you go to them, would say, hey, we can give digital goods where you can give them to the fans directly. Fans can take it wherever they want. And by the way, each time they trade them, there's a fee that comes back to you in perpetuity. That's very exciting. That's very sort of immediately understandable to them. And credit to the NBA that they saw the next layer of it, right? The idea that, wait a second, this is a way that hundreds of millions of our fans can engage with our sport, and then we can track and we can see who's the biggest fan of what, and we can tie new things to it, and sort of this concept of sort of fan loyalty or a different layer of engagement beyond just the collectible very early on came into play, because we realized, highlights are actually much more engaging than a static kind of cardboard card. They're already what people are sharing on Instagram and on TikTok. Now, the concept of getting someone to pay for it and realize that they can sell it, and that part is new behavior. But just people wanting to engage with it goes way beyond static items and things, and sort of data proves it out.
Do you think of yourself as like an anthropologist at all? Because you're so good at talking about, I mean that, like, you're so good at talking about how people consume, in a sense,
Right.
and how they interact with stuff. Like, is that something now you kind of, like, before this crypto journey, before CryptoKitties, like, would you say now you just have a much better sense? How is your sense of how people move and shape and grow and create trends and create culture? Like, how has that changed for you?
I would say I'm mostly just curious and impatient. And so, when I'm curious about something, I just want to kind of figure it out and plan it. I did, the anthropology thread has been, what is a product manager other than an anthropologist, right? You try to understand your audience and what drives them, and then build products to help them sort of live life better. And even like I said, I studied biology, but my favorite class was human behavior biology, where you understand how people think, what drives them, how the brain works, all of this stuff.
Cool. Great. Let's talk about Top Shot. Finally, we're here. We're fine. We made it to the third act. We're going to talk about Top Shot. Thanks for all that on Flow. Top Shot is nearing, I think, like $700 million on the secondary market alone. You guys have beautiful investment from some big names, a lot of people that believe in what you guys are doing with Top Shot and Dapper. 12 months ago, where was that at?
Well, 12 months ago, we had just launched the first version of everything, right? And it was very, it was the first few hundred sort of users. It was trying to figure out honestly, it was so exciting even back then, but everything was small scale. It was the NFT winter in some senses, right? Where it had been years after CryptoKitties, and so people were, a lot of those people were our CryptoKitty community as well as early NBA fans. And so, but you saw the magic in their eyes. It was really cool. And we had also brought on board our first set of NBA athlete investors at that time, or a few months prior. And so when we launched the product, they were, Andre Iguodala was in there, and all these things. Just seeing that response was just super exciting. But we had built everything on a shoestring budget, and it's funny to call $40-50 million a shoestring budget, but that's realistically what it was to do. And actually, by then it was probably $30 million. So everything was very kind of proof of concept, even like it was a skeleton of a proof of concept even back then. Site was down half the time, and we were just kind of figuring out how quickly we can make things, how to get the NBA to send us content in time. Packs were not selling out back then.
Oh, I know. I remember.
And
it made me skeptical when I first joined. I was like, wait, no, but I can just buy them whenever I want. I don't know if is that good or bad, right? So it was just an interesting experience compared to now.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because the collector experience of opening multiple packs of a thing you care about is actually fantastic. And so that was very powerful. Whereas today it's only one pack per person, or at least until we allow or we enable kind of pack trading. That might be another way where people can get multiple packs. But no, engagement wise, I really like that sort of user experience. Yeah, it's been a whirlwind. In a year, I think we made.
In the last, like, let's say year, is there a single day through Top Shot specifically that you were like, this is the day, that is the one, like, you remember everything about that day or specific moment?
Well, I don't know if I remember everything about it because it was sort of a whirlwind, but I think launch day was probably one of my favorite days collectively, sort of the October.
The open beta.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The chance for people to kind of come in and try things for themselves.
The winter.
March. Probably not that soon, no.
Yeah.
Because and some of the groundwork wasn't ready. I mean, in February, March, we had one support person, we had one kind of KYC payments person. We were just, and I went from 4,000 users to 400,000 users in a month and a half. So
Yeah.
it was, but to the team's credit, now we have 61 support team members. We have a 30-40 person risk and compliance team. So it's sort of, we've now kind of backfilled and are ready for, I think, the next leg of growth, which includes new season and includes some sort of legendary players, and includes and third parties, right? Like genies, et cetera, will be launching into the same Dapper ecosystem. You can take your Dapper credits. We are looking into how to give NBA Top Shot. We're looking at NBA Top. I mean, naturally, I think everybody will look at NBA Top Shot collector activity as an indication of, hey, do I want this person early in my mainstream focus beta? Because were they a good user? They not a good user? So we're kind of pulling on all those threads right now. But so in a sense, it's sort of inevitable, right? You kind of hit a scaling point, and that sort of teaches you to be ready for the next scaling point. But we'll see.
What was that like? I do have to ask, like, that boom in February, March. What was that like? Like, totally, understaffed. You only had one support person. Even you guys were probably working all day. But for you to see so many people discovering Top Shot, to be watching TNT and Shaq's talk about Top Shot and stuff like that, like, did you know that would happen all along, especially once you got the call from the NBA and you were working with them, or was that just totally surreal when that was happening?
No, it was. I mean, it was definitely. It was both the plan and surreal in a sense. But look, when we first started working with the NBA, I don't think it was. It took a while before we saw all the bones of, wait a second, this is going to be this is way bigger than, again, collectibles, way bigger than gaming, and whereas in the initial phase of it, the collectible experience and then the mobile game were kind of the two components, and the mobile game was what was sort of more mainstream targeted. But this kind of the way it taps into the fan experience, the way we saw players engage and actually want to figure out, hey, who's owning my stuff? Hey, can I maybe even talk to them? And they were jumping on live streams, just like, of course, wanting to add their own voice to these moments. That was when we realized kind of this is bigger than anything any of us have ever worked on, and we need to kind of approach it the right way, because the counter, the sort of anti-pattern, is also a lot of people come in and say, oh, it's only about speculation, or it's only about whatever it is, and I think it's about separating those two things and saying, hey, look, this category of moments are about speculation. They're about long-term speculation, the way a collector speculates on trading cards or memorabilia or game-used merchandise, whatever it is. Whereas this category is more about fandom. This sort of thing.
Totally. It's been an emotional couple months on Top Shot, as you know, for you as well, I'm sure, but for many people in the community. Now, in the last couple of weeks, we've started to see what you guys have had up your sleeve for a while, right? Some of these great fan experiences, including the one that was announced literally like an hour before we started chatting about the Vegas Summer League and moments being available there. From this point forward, for people that either have a positive, negative, neutral, new to Top Shot, old to Top Shot, think about coming back, the whole sphere of people that have been touched by Top Shot one way or another, what can they expect going forward? And I don't mean give us all the juicy secrets. I mean, like, what are we going to be looking at? Obviously, you don't want to see more like market fluctuations and crazy booms, but like, just from your standpoint, like, where are you steering the ship for Top Shot?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is more communication and more transparency. It's always hard for a startup because you rely a lot on surprise and delight, and press always wants everything to be new and everything. So it's a balance that we have to strike. But I think that's the number one sort of commitment that we've made, because to a point around market volatility, a lot of it is uncertainty. and a lot of it is misunderstanding, and a lot of it is, the fait accompli of a other project compared to the uncertain future of, wait a second, they might mint this moment, they might create that moment. And so we're going to be much more, and then potentially sort of down to kind of the technology smart contract level, say, hey, look, this is what you at least for, and potentially be season by season, at least for Series 3, there will be no more than, X plays for a given player, depending on, these factors. And so everybody can kind of say, well, we don't know which play it'll be, because the editorial team needs to preserve flexibility. Is it going to be a block or a dunk? Is it going to be in week 1 or in the finals? But we know kind of if I'm a LeBron collector, I know kind of what to expect. And if the team makes the playoffs, I know what to expect. If the team makes the finals, I know what to expect. And same thing around kind of total quantities and rares and legendaries, because for us, the simplicity of, hey, there's 10,000 CryptoPunks. It's great. That makes sense to people. And so we've learned from that as well, as opposed to saying, well, this legendary is this, but that legendary is that. And we just want to say, hey, look, these are the macroeconomic rules of how the Top Shot economy team is going to govern themselves, and this is what to expect in the future. And so that'll create more predictability about the past as well. And then the other thing is like everything you're seeing us do with these proof of concepts, Summer League and all this sort of thing, pretty small scale still. I mean, the player con is good. I think we're going to be able to have 100 plus people be involved there. We're doing more merch and kind of things that are also accessible internationally. But that's, we have 500,000 paid users, right? It's not we can't keep doing, 8 people here, 100 people there. We have to figure out a way to sort of engage people at a mass scale. And, in an ideal world, anyone that shows up to an arena with a Top Shot account should be treated differently based on it and because of it, in a way that scales to 100 million NBA fans and sort of the tens of millions that go to games every year. And so that's a lot of what we're thinking through. And, you see little kind of tests come up of like, hey, Summer League this. Well, that's been in the works for a long time, approvals and logistics and all these sorts of things. But when we do it once, we get a lot better at being able to do it. Again.
Well, you've laid the groundwork for exactly. You've opened the doors, right?
Exactly. And seeing what works, see what doesn't work, see what people like. We look at all the feedback, whether it's phrased in a constructive manner or maybe in a very sharp manner.
Peek through some of the comments.
You got to, right? Because these are at the end of the day, we would much rather have people hate us than be indifferent to us. And it means we have a chance. If someone has a lot of emotion towards us, that's also, hey, you guys messed this activation up. You should have done it this way. Well, thank you for the feedback. That's useful. I mean, we didn't do that way maybe for certain reasons. But potentially maybe we can do 2 things at the same time next time, so we can address 2 different communities, or it's all, but everyone always wants everything instantly. And so that's kind of a little bit of the balance of sort of running a startup is you just can't, you have to pick and choose. You have to do things in sequence but it'll all kind of ladder into a bright future, I'm confident.
What is the ideal state of Top Shot? And you're in tech, so you never stop building. I get that. But what is like to you in terms of how we use it on a daily basis, game basis, whatever? Like, what is that it's like, this is Top Shot has reached its final form, let's say?
Well, yeah, I don't know if there is a final form, because I'll say why. Well, but 2 things. One, as sort of a when it comes to Top Shots, especially like I said, kind of the more limited edition rare moments, for them to be truly seen as a best in class collectible when it comes to basketball, and best in class as in they are way better than, let's say, a trading card, because they are hyper digital, they're instantly authenticatable, they're fully transparent. You can see every single item in existence back to the dawn of time, who owns it, what they've done with it, all of these things. And they're better than things like CryptoPunks because they appeal to hundreds of millions of people. And they actually have an emotional connection to a particular player, particular team, particular moment. Maybe you were actually even at the game, et cetera. And so people don't fully understand that, and it gets a little bit kind of mixed up in terms of the volatility around challenges or the sort of the gamification aspects of Top Shot, I think cloud that a little bit. So first, I think one of the I want people to really understand how Top Shot works as an economy, separate from Top Shot as almost like a gamified fandom experience. And then the second, the gamified fandom experience, I want that to be accessible to hundreds of millions, billions of fans worldwide, and to actually be an acquisition channel for new fans for the NBA.
Yeah.
And those people aren't going to come day one, spend $100,000.
Yeah.
But what they might do is go to their first game, go to the Top Shot kiosk. Oh, this is kind of cool. Spend $5 as a memento. Go online, go check out the marketplace. Be like, wait a second. I grew up watching Michael Jordan play. This is kind of kind of an interesting thing. That is not a confirmation or denial. But you see what I'm saying?
No, I know what you mean. Well, just the basketball history basically is kind of what you're alluding to. That it's like they'll discover it and they'll be like, oh wow, I didn't realize I could do this with all these games that have happened in the past, including last year and 20 years ago.
Yeah, right? I mean, what I'm saying is, Top Shot should be a great on ramp for a power collector and a power user, a super fan, but also for a casual fan that maybe is getting into the sport for the first time, or goes to games but isn't following everything. Goes to games when they're in town, etc. And so it kind of pulls people down that fandom journey. Because it makes it, hey, gives me skin in the game, gives me more things to think about. Oh, now I pay attention to the draft because who's coming in. Oh, I pay attention to trades because it might affect my my collection. All of this stuff just adds a deeper level of makes the game four-dimensional.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, there's so much more interactability. I guess if that's not even a word, but yeah. I know what you mean. Okay, cool. Last question about Top Shot. When are we going to see Hardcore? The mobile game or the fun game or whatever it is. And you've kind of given us some hints of what it might be like just by talking about your bird catcher stuff and all the gaming experience stuff. But
right. Well, no, I don't think Top Shot, the mobile game, will be aiming cameras at
trying to catch basketball players around or trying to play them on the street.
Although that's an interesting idea. So Hardcore, well, I mean, it's in testing. We have real players on it at the moment. We're not happy with sort of where it slots into. Like, things moved really quickly since Hardcore was intended as more of a we're confident moment ownership directly can be a mass market activity. If you look at kind of mobile games, NBA mobile games, even basketball mobile games, 10 million monthly actives, 20 million monthly actives, whatever it is, we now see a very direct path to Top Shot, the collectible product, being that social, that engaging, and not needing sort of a digital free-to-play experience in order to appeal to a normal fan who wouldn't otherwise understand, trading cards and collect. Because 10 million people don't collect trading cards, right? Or don't like professionally or sort of
in the current collecting way that they do. Yeah,
exactly. And so that's changed. And now we say, well, look, the collectible itself can be top of funnel. You can go to an NBA game, pay $5, get a collectible. And so that turns the game on its head, and it makes it much more important. The game becomes much more a place where you show off your collection, where you play with your collection, where you engage with others, where you sort of socialize, et cetera. And a bunch of the sort of early user experience needs to be tweaked around there. So we're still working on it. And the other thing that's changed is we can't launch anything quietly now. Anything we'll do will sort of have a big boost. And I mean, what we've seen with mobile games is, that thing, when we launch it, should rocket to the top of the App Store. And so we should do it at a time when we're ready for the kind of millions of users that are
going to come. You want to be ready this time, kind of thing, when that happens. Yeah,
exactly. Okay. And there's no value to rushing it. We've got lots of stuff planned over the summer. We've got stuff planned for the fall. We have more structural kind of things that need to be improved with the user experience before kind of a million users come to the website again. And so we feel good about the short-term plan, and it's still and then I would also separate the concept of mobile from mobile game, where the mobile game is ongoing, but getting the collectibles on people's phones is probably going to happen on a closer time scale there. So just being able to pop your phone out, show, hey, this is what I own, QR code, whatever it is,
That'd be great.
verify your identity, but then also be able to show it off to your friends and say, and then eventually trade them. Right? Like, I'll pop you one, you pop me one, and kind of, I mean, again, I'm more so a lot in the works, but
Clearly.
we're focused on doing things kind of the right way, because we've seen. We've sort of proven it that we can do things.
Absolutely.
We have to prove that
No.
we
What
can
you're
do
saying makes
things
total
right.
sense to me. Yeah, you don't have to justify it. I think that's what I think we want to see, and I think that's what the community kind of wants you guys to do. Like, despite you're right about the immediacy where people are just like, give me, but at the same time, it's like I think at this point, through the roller coaster we've been through, it's like, no, like take your time, like do things like totally. When you launch hardcore, yeah, let's have it be the number one app. Let's have it be great the first day, right? So I'm totally down with that. You were talking about the growth in general. This is a very random question, kind of back to the start. Do you get recognized walking down the street? Has that happened?
I think only in San Francisco.
Oh, really? Not even here?
Not here.
Not here. Okay. Just had to ask.
I try to keep a low profile.
That's fair. Yeah, you don't just stroll down the street all day, kind of looking for attention. That's fair. We're pretty much at the end. And you know what happens at the end of interviews on the first mint is we play a game called Would You Rather?
Well,
are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, I prepared some questions.
Okay.
It's a little sweaty. I prepared them before because I didn't want to forget them. Okay. Roham, would you rather that Top Shot becomes so big that they rename the NBA Dapper Labs, like the NBA comes under your umbrella, or that InfoDogs makes a comeback and becomes the biggest website ever?
Focus on the NBA at this point.
Okay. Second question. Would you rather that Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and all those mega billionaire guys, they pool together to buy Dapper for $1 trillion, and they also give you ownership of Mars, the entire planet?
Okay.
Or half the world is using Dapper products, whatever we're at, like 8 billion people now. 4 billion people are using Dapper products.
Much the second one.
The second one.
What am I gonna do with Mars?
I don't know. You've got cool ideas, man. I'm sure with $1 trillion in Mars, I'm sure you'd come up with something. You come up with something pretty sweet.
Between Earth and VR, I feel like we've got things going.
We got enough stuff here. Okay. This last one is a yes or no question. It's kind of tough. Last two are the fun ones. So this is kind of a cruel one, maybe.
Okay.
Yes or no? Would you, if Flow was the underlying technology powering like everything we use, like especially mobile stuff, like iOS, Android, all that stuff, everything they were building was now on Flow. And this is obviously a little further into the future, but it was white labeled and nobody knew it was Flow. Would you be down with that?
Yeah, I mean, Flow is an open source technology, and it's sort of it's open for anybody to use. I mean, it's got a cool name though, so I'm pretty sure people would want to know it's on Flow, and would prefer things that are on Flow simply because it's called Flow. But yeah, no pride of authorship here.
Great answers. Do you have any questions for me?
Well, what did you think of the interview?
I thought you were great. It's hot in here, so we're both kind of sweaty. I think it's great to just hear you kind of talk about the stuff. And I think every time, you've been on office hours or done some other kind of interview like that, I've noticed like a really like positive vibe from the community after. I think people want to hear from you more. They want to hear your vision. And you're right. Like people really want that day-to-day, bump, right? That comes from especially these days in NFTs and cryptos. There's so minute to minute. And that's the consumer mindset. But I think it's really reassuring to hear you talk about like what it is that you're trying to do and how like the end goal wasn't just to make Top Shot what it is now. This is just the start. So I think it's really important for us to hear you talk a lot more like that.
Any feedback for us as a collector?
For me as a collector?
Yeah.
Oh man, I don't know. I feel like I do like 3 podcasts a week full of that. I feel like I've done like 85 podcasts now about
So
that.
listen to the first minute.
Just listen to the first minute if you want the feedback. No, yeah, I mean the communication is key. And I understand, when you're scaling, it's challenging to prioritize that when you're literally trying to put out fires, especially on the technical side. But I think you guys have improved a lot with communications, and I would continue to do that. The transparency is key, and that and the grander vision. I think that's what people want, right? Because I think even during the surge in the winter, it was like, okay, like is this it? And that's what drove a lot of the FOMO. It was fun, but people were like, if I don't get this moment now and pay thousands of dollars for it, I'm done. There'll never be other moments. And then clearly there were other moments, and that was the plan. But I think that knowing that, and you guys talked about creating that roadmap for next series and everything, and kind of telling us how many moments of each player we're going to get and everything. I think that's vital. And I think even doing that will set you apart from a lot of the other projects being built in NFTs, is to kind of provide that in a really clear way. So, yeah.
Well, thank you for being part of the community.
Of course, man. Thanks for doing this. Thank you for Dapper and Top Shot, being part of the festival, supporting us. It's great. It's a great kind of end of our, our first phase through the first 7 months of the year, doing the first minute. It's been an honor to do what we do, connect with the community and talk about Top Shot. So thank you for agreeing to this too. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Everybody, you heard it here. The interview, there was no breaking news, except for maybe the MJ thing, but it's okay. There was no major breaking news, but the festival is off to a great start. Hang out in just about an hour. You got a great presentation coming up from Blockto, and then from Eternal GG, and a bunch of other great partners and sponsors and speakers, panelists coming up through the next 3 days. I'm LG Doucet. You will see me a few more times throughout the festival. Check out for firstmidfest.com. You're probably on it right now for more information.